for good news to start us off on the press review. Something that once we finish this programme, we're all going to go out in the streets in a big mass without our masks.
Yes, we're just going to fling them off. We can breathe. That is essentially what Libération is saying today on its front page. Chiming in on this good and sudden welcome news, the easing of the COVID restrictions when you are in uncrowded spaces outside. But such positive news, along with the lifting of nightly curfews as of Sunday, may have some ulterior motives. French voters are heading to the polls this Sunday for regional elections, and Libération says Macron hopes to sort of keep these positive improvements in voters' minds when they cast their ballots. Meanwhile, the conservative paper Le Figaro argues that it isn't the elections per se, but the fact that Macron understands that, quote, the situation has become absurd and laughable, with fewer people respecting the rules since scientists said transmission is decreased and less risky outside. But not all scientists agree that right now is the exact time to ease up, according to La Croix. The paper says that some scientists may say it may be premature considering the risks of the Delta variant and considering the upcoming and very popular June 21st Fête de la Musique, the music festival.
Let's hope it's not too bad. Now let's talk about the main news, or reflect, if that's the right word, on the main news from yesterday, that Biden-Putin meeting in Geneva. Of course, the press is reacting to it, Solange.
Yeah, and I thought we'd start with the cartoons to sort of keep up with this positive vibe. There were two schools of thought at the meeting, according to the cartoonist Patrice Chapat in his cartoon for the Boston Globe, with Biden saying, "Enough photos, I need success," and Putin saying, "Great success, these photos." Now, perhaps, and I am extrapolating here, it is a sign that Putin has everything to gain in Geneva, image-wise, and little to give to Biden in exchange. Now, the British cartoonist Dave Brown, he took a poke at the elephant in the room, Donald Trump. The significant change in diplomacy from the U.S.'s part has Putin putting a "not my president" pin on one lapel on one side, and on the other, Trump's signature hair, cheering in here, I guess, or not cheering in the arrival of Joe Biden.
Very nice. But the analysis front, how are the press actually talking about it then, Solange?
Well, the Russian paper Kommersant says on its front page that Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden were the heroes of Geneva. The paper offers a glowing play-by-play of their meeting, saying Putin took the encounter to heart. So quite a bit of sort of rah-rah there, and quite a lot of yay.
Rah.
Yeah, raw. But there is then the New York Times, and it says that while their relationship is likely to be, quote, strained and a frustrating association, there was a veneer of civil discourse. And the paper says that normalcy of the encounter is a step up from the 2018 summit, where Donald Trump suggested that he trusted Putin more than U.S. intelligence agencies. And in that same vein, the New Yorker says that the fact that nothing crazy happened is a success in itself. But for The Atlantic, the real winners here are in Russia. The site argues that Putin has little to offer Biden because Putin and his cronies, The Atlantic says, have already enforced their will on Russian society, and therefore they feel no need to accommodate the U.S. or placate within Russia's government those that want to westernize.
Let's talk about the Ivory Coast for this next story. Laurent Gbagbo is expected to return from exile later today after being acquitted, of course, by the ICC. How's the press treating this one?
Well, there's a lot of he's arriving and excitement. There is excitement and joy in the Ivory Coast, according to Courrier International. The site tells us of how the Burkinabe paper Wakat Sarah says that Gbagbo's imminent return has created a euphoria, but also an anxiety over the fear that it could stoke tensions. And for Slate Afrique, both sides, Gbagbo and President Alassane Ouattara, they want to avoid new clashes between the two camps, the ones that in the 2010 election dispute led to some 3,000 deaths and sent Gbagbo to the ICC. Both papers say that the two men are vying for control of the narrative here, of being the person who can represent national unity and control as well. Mediapart, the French site, is also taking a look at this return from a French perspective. It argues that for France, it is a sign that Nicolas Sarkozy's politics failed, that 10 years after his pushing for Gbagbo to become a sort of forgotten leader, Sarkozy's efforts have fallen flat. The irony of the site says is that he, Sarkozy, and not Gbagbo, has been pushed out of returning from the political sphere.
And Solange is going to end with some good news for us from the US.
Yes, the U.S. Congress, both the House and the Senate, have passed a bill making Juneteenth, or June 19th, a federal holiday. Once Joe Biden signs the proposal, it'll be the first federal holiday that's been created since 1983 and the creation of Martin Luther King Day. Now, the Washington Post, it tells us that Juneteenth rings in the day in 1865, that news finally reached Texas about the Emancipation Proclamation, or the news that slaves were free, African Americans were free of slavery. But the paper says that some feel that the holiday is just a symbolic move and not a substantive improvement to racial strife in the U.S. But the paper says that symbols do matter, that a year ago, many white Americans had never heard of Juneteenth, and that symbols like it can open up dialogue, education, and, of course, reconciliation.
Some good news to end the press review. Thank you very much, Solange Moujon, with the papers, and Steve